To do an interview with Kathy Engelbert. She's the WNBA commissioner. Todd spoke to her a couple of nights ago, and we had a pairings party. Todd went up to her. She's been very friendly to the show. Last year at this event was friendly to us. And Todd said, hey, we'd love to have you on. There's a lot of questions. People have not heard answers from the commissioner. And she said yes.
A lot of questions regarding Caitlin Clark, regarding expansion, regarding the questions from Congress, demanding answers.
They kept him waiting for 2 hours, and then the WNBA PR staff had the nerve to send a text saying, sorry, she's not allowed to appear on your show anymore. Not even a call, just a text.
So yesterday, after the show, we waited almost 2 hours for her. This was scheduled. She was going to do a meeting in her hotel room, a conference call, and then she was going to join us. So Fritzy, for at least 90 minutes, is looking just for an update. We're trying to figure, we're standing by, we're waiting to interview her. They didn't, balk at anything, didn't say you can't ask any.
Just let that sink in for a second. The commissioner of a professional sports league agreed to an interview, was promoted throughout the day, and then had her own PR department cancel the appearance as if she were an intern who needed permission to speak. And that tells you almost everything you need to know about where the WNBA stands right now. But here's the part that should really concern you. It's not just the no-show. It's what the no-show reveals about a pattern that has been developing for months. We're going to get to that.
Todd did. The commissioner said that the WNBA staff, the PR staff, said that she is not allowed to do this.
The WNBA PR staff, who should, I guess, be working for her, and she's the one that sends out word, hey, make sure that we cover this issue in terms of PR. Hey, make sure we cover that. Now they're reaching out to her and saying, hey, Kathy, keep your mouth shut.
They would prefer that she did not do this.
Okay.
You're the commissioner, and you're listening to the PR department, which is fine, but did you check with PR before?
Dan Patrick has had Roger Goodell, Adam Silver, and Rob Manfred on his show. These are commissioners of billion-dollar sports leagues with real legal challenges, real labor disputes, and real scandals. They sat down and answered the tough questions because that's what serious executives in major sports organizations do. Kathy Engelbert was just 50 yards away on a putting green, while Dan's producer kept texting for updates. 50 yards away, not traveling, not in surgery, not delayed on a flight, just 50 yards away, hitting golf balls while a scheduled interview quietly fell apart.
Commissioner, and you're listening to the PR department, which is fine, but did you check with PR before you said yes to us? We promoted it all day yesterday. Now, look, I know people get...
And here's where the story becomes genuinely strange. According to Dan, it was the PR staff who pulled the plug, not Engelbert herself. The commissioner of the league was apparently overruled by the very people who, in theory, work for her. Which raises a question that nobody in the WNBA has answered. Who is actually running this?
It's not real. It's a fake league, Dan. It's a fake league.
And I'm sure that had something to do with it. But she went on a radio station in Kansas City, but from what I was told, she was only going to be asked about expansion. They were not going to be...
Now, Dan tried to be generous about it. He said he had no issue if she simply chose not to come on. That's a legitimate decision for anyone to make. What he couldn't accept was the agreement, the 2-hour wait, the promotion throughout the day, and then the last-minute text. Because that wasn't a scheduling conflict. It was a real-time decision made while Engelbert was already at the event to simply cancel on one of the country's most prominent sports media voices. And the question you have to ask is, what were they so afraid of?
A lot of questions regarding Caitlin Clark, regarding expansion, regarding the questions from Congress, demanding answers. There's a lot going on in the WNBA.
So yesterday, after the show, we waited almost 2 hours.
The questions Dan planned to ask were not gotcha ambushes. They focused on Caitlin Clark, league expansion, and the congressional inquiry seeking answers from the WNBA. These are the stories that have dominated sports media for months. These are the issues every WNBA fan wants addressed. Compared to the questions Adam Silver or Roger Goodell routinely face, these were relatively straightforward. Yet the WNBA did not send its commissioner to answer them. That should concern anyone who genuinely wants the league to grow, because leagues that avoid accountability don't build credibility. They erode it. Every time accountability is avoided, it becomes another withdrawal from a trust account the WNBA cannot afford to keep draining.
We reached out to the WNBA all morning long. We needed, just give us a comment. Does anybody have a comment on this? Is anybody there at the office? We couldn't get a hold of anybody. So Paulie, during the show, is trying to track down somebody so we can at least let the WNBA have their say, have their voice, get out in front of this. We're just trying to be a journalist here. That's all. We're just trying to ask questions. But
that's not allowed to do that either. The WNBA is allergic to journalism, Dan.
This isn't the first time the WNBA has treated media access as a threat instead of an opportunity. Earlier this season, the league moved to review veteran journalist Christine Brennan's credentials, reportedly after she asked questions about Dejounte Carrington's on-court conduct during a Caitlin Clark incident. Brennan is not just another blogger. She's a USA Today columnist and has covered major sporting events for decades. The idea that her credentials would be reviewed because she asked difficult questions about a game should concern anyone who covers sports professionally. And it didn't stop there.
The same league where you have stooges for the Indiana Fever who hold their phone sideways at warm-ups and ask softball questions to the Indiana Fever coaching staff regarding Caitlin Clark's injuries. The same league who, that same media for the Indiana Fever don't report Caitlin Clark's injuries. That same league who, that same Indiana Fever team actually fires real journalists like Scott Agnes doing work because he's actually...
There have been reports, and this channel has covered them, about credentialed media at Indiana Fever games being guided on what they can and cannot ask about Caitlin Clark. Reporters holding their phones sideways during warm-ups, avoiding certain questions, and steering clear of anything that might create a major headline. And when a journalist like Scott Agnes does the kind of reporting that holds organizations accountable, he gets fired. Think about what that kind of environment does to coverage over time. If the only journalists allowed into the building are the ones who agree not to make anyone uncomfortable, you don't get journalism, you get content. You get PR presented as reporting. And the fans who rely on that coverage to understand what's really happening end up being misled. That is the environment the WNBA has been building. And Engelbert's no-show on The Dan Patrick Show is not just a one-time embarrassment. It is the natural result of a culture that treats media access as something to be controlled, managed, and minimized.
Said, in my opinion, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Well, at some point, you have to do this.
Not only that, but they don't have the... You don't have the answers, Sway. They don't have the answers. So they don't even have the ability to prep Kathy Engelbert properly on how to respond to certain...
There's a business perspective here that often gets lost amid all the outrage, and it is worth taking a moment to consider. The WNBA is currently experiencing an unprecedented moment. Caitlin Clark's arrival has generated rating spikes, sold-out arenas, and national attention the league had not seen in years. Expansion is being discussed, and there is real money and genuine interest flowing into a league that spent much of its history fighting for both. This is exactly the exact moment when you want your commissioner to be visible, vocal, and willing to sit down with a tough interviewer to defend the product. Not because the questions are easy, but because a confident answer to a difficult question is worth more than 10 press releases. Every league executive who has successfully managed a crisis understands this. You lean in.
If they want to be treated as a serious league, they would have told the NBA during this most recent collective bargaining agreement, hey, we're good. We don't want your money. We don't want you to support us anymore. We're going to do our own thing and try to survive on our own. But they want the handouts. They want the handout.
And then there is the financial side of the story, because in sports, there's always a financial angle. The WNBA operates with significant support from the NBA. That relationship, often described as a subsidy, is one reason the league's long-term stability has been stronger than its attendance and television numbers alone might otherwise support. The league is not yet fully standing on its own. That is a fact, not an insult. But it matters here because a league that relies on outside support needs credibility even more than an independent league does. It needs to demonstrate that it is building something real, that it deserves continued investment, and that growth is on the horizon. You do not make that case by avoiding the media. You make it by showing up, presenting your case, and trusting the product to stand up to scrutiny. Engelbert had the opportunity to do exactly that on Thursday. She was 50 yards away and she didn't take it.
A feeble response. Like, come on. You don't want to do it. You won't. The commissioner of the NFL does not want to come on this show. I've been doing this for 20 years. There's a reason why he doesn't want to come on.
This is even worse for the WNBA. But again, they don't see...
One more point Dan made deserves special attention. He said that not showing up and then having that exact conversation take place publicly on a show was far more damaging to the WNBA than any tough question Engelbert might have faced during the interview. And he was right. Whatever questions Dan had planned about Caitlin Clark or the congressional inquiry, Engelbert could have prepared for them. She could have addressed them professionally. She could have offered a measured response and left the interview appearing confident and in control. Instead, the WNBA spent Thursday afternoon being publicly criticized for a no-show on a national platform. The story is no longer about the questions Dan intended to ask. The story is the cancellation itself, and that story is far more damaging.
Our department said I shouldn't do it. And she's 50 yards away. She's hitting practice shots out of the bunker.
Damn.
So that's what's disappointing. We deserve more respect than what she gave.
There's also the question of what this signals to the people who were trying to cover the league fairly, because not everyone covering the WNBA is hostile to it. Dan Patrick made that point explicitly. He wanted to give Engelbert a fair platform. He said he would treat her with respect and noted that he had positive interactions with her at previous events. He wasn't setting a trap, he was offering an interview. When the league's response to a fair-minded outlet is to cancel without explanation and then appear on a friendly radio show where only expansion questions were asked, it sends a clear message to every journalist watching. You're welcome to cover the league, but only if you agree in advance not to ask difficult questions. And the journalists who refuse to do that, the Christine Brennans and the Scott Agneses, end up being marginalized or pushed aside. What you end up with is a league that has insulated itself from accountability, while also distancing itself from the kind of serious coverage that builds long-term credibility. That is a trap, and the WNBA is moving deeper into it.
To ask anybody tough questions. Players, coaches, staff, not allowed to ask any of them tough questions. You know, we see that with the Indiana Fever. They have whoever that is standing. Hey, you can ask a question. You can't ask a question. That's going to be a hard question. You can't ask a question. So that's how it is in the WNBA. It's
the deeper issue here, and it's worth taking a moment to consider, is that the Caitlin Clark situation exposed a real tension within the WNBA that league leadership has never directly addressed publicly. Clark is the league's biggest story, its biggest attraction, and by most measurable metrics, the primary reason casual fans tuned in this season. That is not a controversial statement. The ratings support it. The attendance supports it. The social media numbers support it. Yet the league has remained noticeably quiet about the incidents involving Clark that attracted national attention. When a particular play sparked widespread discussion across the sports world, the WNBA could not be reached for comment. Dan's show tried to contact the league throughout the morning, but there was no response. The league that had the most to gain by addressing the story chose silence. You can interpret that silence in several ways, but none of them are particularly good for business.
I have no problem with that. But if you tell me you're coming on and you make us wait 2 hours, that's a problem. And that says a lot about what's going on, in my opinion, with the WNBA.
damn. WNBA is getting.
So, where does this leave things? The WNBA is at a crossroads that its own leadership does not appear to fully recognize. On one side is a genuine opportunity, a breakout star, expansion momentum, congressional attention that could translate into policy support, and a media moment that leagues wait decades to experience. On the other side is an institutional culture that treats accountability as a threat, allows PR staff to overrule commissioners, cancels interviews, and then acts as though the cancellation will not create even more negative coverage. The leagues that learn to work with serious media instead of against it grow. They become lasting institutions, the ones that don't spend years wondering why casual fans never stayed engaged. The question facing the WNBA is simple. Which path do you want to take? Because the clock is ticking. This opportunity will not remain open forever, and Caitlin Clark will not play forever either. You can use this moment to build something that lasts beyond her career, or spend it playing defense against journalists who simply wanted to ask questions. Engelbert had the chance to begin answering those questions on Thursday afternoon. She was 50 yards away. Drop a comment below. Do you think the WNBA will ever put her in front of a real interview, or will the league continue avoiding the questions? And if you think this pattern matters for the future of the WNBA, hit like and subscribe, because we're going to keep following this story closely.